Some films become classics because audiences love them. Others become unforgettable because people never stop debating them. Released in 1977, Bilitis wasn't a box office giant or a Hollywood blockbuster. It was a quiet French drama with stunning visuals, a haunting soundtrack, and a story that unfolded with silence instead of spectacle. For some, it was one of the most beautiful films of the decade. For others, it became one of the most controversial. Nearly half a century later, people are still talking about it. So what made Bilitis so different? Why did its music become famous around the world? And how did a small European film leave such a complicated legacy? Today, we're exploring the complete story of Bilitis. If you enjoy discovering forgotten classics, hidden movie history, and the untold stories behind legendary films, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week, we dive into the movies that changed cinema forever. Directed by David Hamilton, French coming-of-age film Bilitis holds an IMDb rating of 5.3 out of 10 based on around 2.9K user votes. Now, let's begin where every great film begins. The film introduces us to Bilitis, a quiet and thoughtful teenager who has spent most of her life in a strict boarding school. Unlike the other girls around her, Bilitis isn't loud or rebellious. She observes more than she speaks, quietly wondering what the world outside the school walls might be like. When summer vacation finally arrives, she happily leaves school behind, believing she'll spend a few peaceful weeks relaxing before returning to her normal routine. She couldn't have been more wrong. The moment Bilitis arrives in the southern countryside of France, everything begins to change. Gone are the classrooms and strict schedules. Instead, she finds endless sunshine, quiet country roads, beautiful gardens, and peaceful afternoons where life seems to move at its own gentle pace. Bilitis becomes acquainted with an elegant married couple living nearby. To her young eyes, they appear to have everything she dreams adulthood could be. They live in a beautiful home surrounded by nature. They seem sophisticated, confident, and completely in love. Bilitis admires them almost immediately. But the longer she spends with them, the more she notices tiny details that don't match the perfect picture. Their conversations suddenly become awkward. Simple disagreements linger longer than they should. Moments of silence begin saying more than words ever could. Slowly, Bilitis realizes something she has never considered before. Adults don't have all the answers. Behind every perfect smile can hide disappointment. Behind every beautiful home can exist loneliness. Without anyone deliberately teaching her, the married couple becomes Bilitis's first real lesson about the complicated reality of growing up. Around the same time, another person enters her life, a young photographer. Unlike the older couple, he represents youth, creativity, and freedom. He notices beauty everywhere, in sunlight filtering through trees, in quiet landscapes, and in ordinary moments most people would never stop to appreciate. His outlook on life fascinates Bilitis. The two begin spending time together, taking long walks through the countryside and sharing simple conversations that slowly help Bilitis understand herself in ways she never expected. Their friendship grows naturally, not through dramatic speeches or life-changing events, but through shared moments, gentle conversations, comfortable silence, and the excitement of discovering the world for the very first time. What makes Bilitis different from most coming-of-age films is that almost nothing dramatic happens. There are no shocking plot twists, no villains, no explosive confrontations. Instead, the film asks viewers to appreciate the small moments that quietly shape a person's life. A glance, a smile, a sunset, a conversation that changes everything without anyone realizing it. As summer slowly passes, Bilitis begins seeing the world differently. She no longer views adulthood as something simple or perfect. Instead, she understands that every relationship is complicated, every person carries hidden emotions, and growing up often means accepting questions without easy answers. Eventually, summer comes to an end. The people who changed Bilitis's life begin returning to their own worlds. The peaceful countryside that once felt endless slowly becomes another memory. When Bilitis finally leaves, she isn't the same shy schoolgirl who arrived only weeks earlier. She carries something far more valuable than certainty. She carries experience. And that's exactly how the film ends, quietly, without dramatic conclusions, without explaining what happens next. Instead, Bilitis leaves its ending open, allowing every viewer to imagine Bilitis's future for themselves. Some audiences called it beautifully poetic, others found it frustratingly ambiguous, but almost everyone agreed on one thing: they had never seen another film quite like it. Yet what audiences didn't know in 1977 was that the story behind the camera would eventually become just as fascinating and far more controversial than the story on the screen.
So, who created a film that looked unlike almost anything else released in 1977? The answer was David Hamilton. Interestingly, Hamilton never planned to become a traditional film director. Born in London in 1933, he later built his career in Paris, working in fashion, advertising, and photography. During the late 1960s and early 1970s, his photograph books became international bestsellers, earning him both praise and criticism. His photographs shared a signature style that was instantly recognizable. They were filled with soft, natural light, gentle colors, and a dreamlike atmosphere that made every image feel almost like a paint. In dramatic moments, it was found in quiet ones. That philosophy would eventually shape every frame of Bilitis. The idea for the film came from the Songs of Bilitis, an 1894 collection of poems written by French author Pierre Louis. The poems followed the fictional life of a young woman named Bilitis and explored themes of youth, memory, love, and the bittersweet journey into adulthood. Hamilton wasn't interested in making a direct adaptation of the poems. Instead, he wanted to capture their emotion. Working with screenwriter Catherine Breillat, who would later become an acclaimed filmmaker herself, Hamilton transformed those poetic ideas into a simple coming-of-age story set in the beautiful countryside of southern France. Filming took place almost entirely on location. Instead of relying on expensive studio sets, Hamilton used real villages, gardens, beaches, and countryside landscapes. He preferred natural sunlight over artificial lighting, and often filmed during the early morning or late afternoon, when the light was soft and golden. This gave Bilitis its distinctive visual style. Even today, many photographers point to the film as a masterclass in using natural light to create mood and atmosphere. For years, Bilitis continued to find new audiences. Film schools studied its cinematography, photographers admired its use of natural light, and Francis Lai's soundtrack became one of the most recognizable scores of the decade. It seemed that David Hamilton had achieved exactly what every first-time director dreams. He had created a film that people would remember for generations. But then, everything changed. Years after Bilitis left theaters, David Hamilton's name returned to headlines, not because of a new film, but because of serious allegations that sparked worldwide debate about his career and artistic legacy. Almost overnight, audiences began looking at Bilitis through a completely different lens. The movie itself hadn't changed, but the way people understood it certainly had.